Now we start with China and Japan. The China Coast Guard said in a statement that a Chinese guard ship formation has passed through the waters of the Senkaku Island in the rights of enforcement patrol. This comes as diplomatic tensions between China and Japan have intensified since Japanese Prime Minister Sanae Takaichi told the parliament that a hypothetical Chinese attack on democratically ruled Taiwan could trigger a military response from Tokyo. The remark sparked an angry response from Beijing, which has signaled that it expects Takaichi to retract them in some fashion. China and Japan have repeatedly faced off around the Japan-administered islands, which Beijing calls Diaoyu and Tokyo calls the Senkaku. Now for this discussion, we welcome Andrew K.P. Long. He's a China strategist, joins us live from Hong Kong. Thank you very much, Andrew, for joining us again. Good to see you. Andrew, can you tell us about this island and its specific or strategic importance for both the nations?
Well, these islands, China call them the Diaoyu Islands, is the fishing islands, and the Japanese call them the Senkaku Islands. Just barren rocks, maybe sort of a couple of 100 miles from Japan. And these islands were supposed to be under U.S. administration during the war, Second World War. And after the war, the treaty that Japan, of course, signed and having surrendered, agreed to return all occupied territories to their original sovereign states, including Taiwan, including all these islands. But some islands after the Second World War were under U.S. administration. For example, even Okinawa and of course the Diaoyu Islands were simply neglected because it's so small, just barren rocks. And then afterwards, the United States returned those islands to Japan, without the Chinese government agreeing to this transfer. And of course, the Diaoyu Islands or the Senkaku Islands, of course, it is a very strategic point because it's quite close to Japan, and of course, it's right in the East China Sea. Now, this latest Japanese Prime Minister, the lady Prime Minister, is known to be a very hawkish politician. She had been the previous Prime Minister Abe's protege, and she's risen to power based on her very hawkish policies. These policies are gaining currency because there are a number of Japanese people who see that it was so long after the Second World War. Japan wants to become a normal country, and even supporting a revision of the wartime constitution of Japan, empowering Japan to militarize, building up its own armed forces. But that was, of course, in contravention with the wartime constitution of Japan. So all these translate into a more hawkish attitude, hyping up the Taiwan threat, saying it is threatening Japan's national security, and so supporting the dynamics for militarization. And of course, this has angered Beijing because Taiwan is the reddest of the red lines as far as Beijing is concerned. And this latest patrol by Coast Guard vessels of China is intended to send a warning note to the Japanese Prime Minister.
Yes, indeed. And how could this China's use of rights enforcement patrols around these islands reflect the broader strategy of China now?
Well, of course, China has no intention of invading or recovering these islands by military force, because that would unsettle the stability of the whole region. But it's using softer tactics like diplomacy and also military deterrence against any form of unfriendly gestures on the part of Japan. But I think that the greatest military power in the Asia Pacific remains the United States, and the United States doesn't want war in the Asia Pacific, because the United States, for example, Taiwan, the United States no longer recognize Taiwan, and is recognizing Beijing as the rightful authority representing the whole of China under the One China policy. But of course, the United States also has an Taiwan Relations Act, which empowers the Trump administration to continue to supply arms to Taiwan. So I think that the situation is a question of a subtle tussle of measures, short of war. But I think that as far as the Japanese new prime minister is concerned, is trying to exploit this kind of situation for her political gains.
Right. Thank you very much, Andrew, for sharing that. Please stay with us as we stay on this topic now. Now, looking at Taiwan, Taiwan is facing growing public unease over compulsory